Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video in the What Even Is series. Today's video takes a political turn. At the time of recording, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has been going on for over 2 months now. Many, mostly Western countries, have been continuously imposing rounds of sanctions on Russia, and the UN has condemned the violence inflicted by Mr. Putin on innocent Ukrainians. Many have likened these events to that of the Cold War, which got me thinking, where was India during the Cold War? And from there, my trail of thought took a turn into exploring, well, what even is the Third World? But why would your trail of thought take you from the Cold War to the Third World, I hear you ask? And how does that warrant a spot in the What Even Is series? Well, let me set the scene for you. Shortly after the end of the Second World War, as the entire world was regrouping from the devastation, two superpowers emerged with completely opposing ideologies: the US and the USSR. NATO versus the Warsaw Pact. Capitalism versus communism. Neither could see the other as a viable model for society. And as they battled for supremacy via proxy wars, the space race,
Neil Armstrong has the scoop,
and, nuclear threat, the rest of the world aligned itself along these two blocks. But simultaneously, something else was afoot. Countries all over the globe were slowly gaining their independence from their European colonizers, or were tirelessly fighting to achieve it. India's independence in 1947 was a big loss for the UK to digest, and gradually many other colonies slipped from their hands as well. But just as these newly independent countries were trying to figure out their shit, pressure built around them to align themselves with either of the two big posses. Back when these countries were colonies, they had no say in global matters. The two big world wars were proof of that. Just look at the UK. They forced millions of Indian soldiers to fight in Europe and East Asia, and they barely get mentioned in any of the movies. So it shouldn't be a surprise that many of these newly formed nations that just got their independence did not want to participate in a global feud alongside their former colonizers. They felt like this conflict had nothing to do with them. As the Cold War raged on, some of these nations came together to discuss and try and find a solution to this growing pressure. It was in 1955 at the Bandung Asian-African Conference that for the first time, 29 heads of states met and drafted the 10 Principles of Bandung. These principles aimed at national independence and sovereignty, and the recognition of the equality among all races and equality among all nations regardless of their size, and most importantly, refraining from carrying out any acts of aggression against other nations. Off the back of these principles, in the September of 1961, this time 25 countries met and the movement of non-aligned countries was founded at the First Summit Conference of Belgrade. 5 leaders in particular stood out as the founding fathers of this movement: Nessar of Egypt, Nkrumah of Ghana, Sukarno of Indonesia, Tito of Yugoslavia, and, drumroll please, Jawaharlal Nehru of India. And there we had it, the world divided into 3 blocks. To reiterate, the first being NATO, the second the USSR, and now the third, the non-aligned countries. The non-aligned countries would very quickly come to be known as the Third World, a term first coined by a Frenchman called Alfred Sauvy in 1952. He borrowed the term from the political discourse about the French Revolution, in which the society was divided into 3 estates. The first estate was the clergy, the second the nobility, and the third estate was made up of commoners. During the Cold War, Alfie saw countries unwilling to align themselves with either of the superpowers and likened them to the third estate. These nations represented the normal people, the citizens, the commoners who were, well, as he put it, ignored, exploited, and scorned by the elites. And that is how the Third World came about. And because India was one of the leading nations in making that happen, it found a spot in my videos too. See, I told you there was a logic to the link there. While in theory, non-aligned and the Third World should be the same, But in the 21st century, they've come to mean two very different things. The third world is now mostly associated with the economic progress, or lack of, in many Asian, African, and South American countries. Also, most of the countries who signed the non-aligned movement only stayed non-aligned in principle. In reality, almost every single one of them leaned to one or the other side, the founding fathers included. Tito was a tyrannical communist leader. Egypt took Russian aid to invade Israel. And India has been buying Russian army equipment in bulk for decades until very recently. And if you look at what is happening today, India and many other countries have found themselves at the crossroads between two superpowers yet again. With so many countries openly condemning Russia and a mere handful showing their support, India has yet to take a proper stance. Although one may argue that abstaining in the UN and continuing to buy Russian oil is a stance of sorts, what's interesting here is that 70 years ago, India headed a movement to remain neutral because it did not want to side with either, and today it decides to stay quiet because it wants to be best friends with both. It's a tough call, just like it was during the Cold War. And that's why learning history is so important. But I don't know. What do you think? If you enjoyed this video, do let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends. I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!